The more people try to control money, the less they feel like they can control their own lives. At some point, worrying about money stops helping and starts to hurt everything else. My name is Charlie Invest. Please like the video if you enjoyed this kind of open, long-form thinking about money. Sign up for financial analysis that is based on facts and not noise. People usually mean something that makes sense when they say they care about money. They mean they are paying attention. They keep track of how much money they spend. They make plans for what will happen next. They want to be safe. None of that is a problem on its own. You need to know a little bit about money to get by in today's world. The problem starts when caring about money becomes a part of who you are, instead of just something you do. At that point, money is no longer useful. It becomes a scoreboard. It becomes a sign of worth, skill, and safety. And when that happens, the way you think about money changes everything else. These days, caring about money often means always counting it. News about net worth, different parts of the budget, how well investments work, comparing to other people, stories on social media, and benchmarks that aren't clear. The goal is to be clear, but this often leads to stress. People don't feel like they know what's going on. They feel like their own numbers are watching them. Now that it's not just about usefulness, every choice has emotional weight. That choice says something about who they are. This is where things go wrong. Money isn't the issue. The issue lies in the attachment to outcomes and their implications. When money gets people worked up, they start to act differently in small but important ways. People stop judging choices based on how much long-term value they have and start judging them based on how quickly they make them feel better. People work longer hours not because it helps their careers, but because they feel safer when they're busy than when they're not. They don't take risks that could help them learn new things or get more job opportunities because they can't stand the thought of losing money right away. They take away little things that make them happy and call it discipline, even if it doesn't cost much. Life gets smaller as time goes on. There are not as many choices. You lose your flexibility. It all seems like a good idea, but a lot of it is based on fear instead of a plan. People who are anxious often act this way and call it caution. People say they are careful, disciplined, or cautious. In truth, many people are just trying to relax their minds. They use money to feel like they can control a world that is always changing. They hold on to their money more when life feels out of control. They keep track of more things. They plan more things. They work harder to make things better. But instead of feeling better, they usually feel worse. This is what it costs you mentally to use money to get people to do what you want. It can be comforting to be in charge when you don't know what will happen in the future. But there are limits to how much control you can have over money. The markets change. Jobs are always changing. Changes in health. If you use money tracking and optimization instead of emotional regulation, you could get stuck in a cycle of stress. They see things change the more they watch. They feel the need to keep an eye on things as they see more changes. The information stops being useful and starts to scare you. Planning becomes something you have to do. The mind is never at rest because there is always something else to think about. This dynamic often replaces more profound inquiries regarding the rationale and direction to pursue. People don't care if their work is important. They care if it pays well. They don't care if their way of life is good for their health and relationships. They care if it works. People use money as a stand-in for choices that are really about what they believe in. It's easier to change a spreadsheet than to deal with sadness or doubt. The spreadsheet grows, but the information becomes less clear. Modern financial advice makes this problem worse. There's never been more advice out there than there is now. Tools for budgeting, systems for getting things done, stories about working hard, math for retiring early, and ways to make the most of your time. A lot of it is good. A lot of it is right from a technical point of view. But without context, it teaches people to look at their lives through a financial lens. They look at every cost. Every hour you have free is important. It feels like a failure every time something goes wrong with the perfect plan. People feel guilty and unhappy all the time because they are always being exposed to things. People can earn more money, pay off their debts, and save more money, but they may still feel like they're behind because there is always something else to do. Advice that was supposed to help ends up causing stress. People think that if they aren't getting the most out of every dollar and every hour, they are being careless. A lot of people don't talk about balance. People don't talk about the mental cost very often. Because of this, a lot of people start to think that warning signs are good. Being unhappy even when your finances get better is seen as ambition. Discipline is not being able to enjoy important events. Prudence is making decisions based on fear. These signs don't mean you're tough. They are a sign that something is wrong. When money becomes the main thing, progress stops feeling steady and starts to feel shaky. Achievements do not bring comfort. They made the next one a bigger goal. When your feelings change depending on how much money you have, that's another sign of trouble. A good month brings peace for a little while. A bad month can make you very stressed. The numbers are doing more than they should to make people feel bad. This gives them a weak sense of safety that depends on getting constant approval. People only feel safe when the metrics are getting better, which is not a good thing for any complex system. This way of thinking doesn't just apply to money. It has an effect on health, relationships, and choices. People begin to view discussions as transactions. It seems like time costs a lot. Rest doesn't seem fair. It can even feel like a risk to be kind. The story changes from making a living to keeping a job. That change is small, but it has a big impact. An obsession with money that isn't checked doesn't go away. It goes deeper. The more time money is used as an emotional anchor, the more it controls everyday life. What starts as being aware of your responsibilities slowly turns into long-term stress. What looks like discipline starts to look like being strict. This is when the cost becomes clear, both emotionally and strategically. Next, we need to think about the bigger effects. Most people think that their lives will get better when they make more money and save more. They think that having more money will make them happier, less stressed, and better overall. This doesn't always happen in real life. People's expectations usually rise as their income rises. The baseline shifts. Goals keep moving. What used to be safe is now the bare minimum. Anxiety doesn't go away. It changes. Someone who used to worry about paying their bills now worries about keeping up with their lifestyle, protecting their investments, or not falling behind their peers. The numbers get better, but the way you feel inside stays tense. Even when you're making progress with your money, being obsessed with it makes you less happy. There's no such thing as a rival because it is never defined. They're raised as soon as targets are reached. Milestones for savings seem short and anticlimactic. More money comes in when standards are higher and fears are new. Stability is no longer guaranteed. It depends on continued performance. When satisfaction is put off for an indefinite amount of time, progress stops being rewarding. This situation makes people feel bad in a subtle but long-lasting way. People begin to believe that they are always on the verge of safety, yet they are not. The future always feels like it's not done yet. Even when a company's finances are objectively strong, they can feel weak because expectations and perceived obligations grow faster than capacity. Money doesn't stay still. It moves like a finish line. A lot of people are working harder on optimization to keep this path going. They improve budgets. They get rid of waste. They use their time well. This looks good on the outside. It often has to choose between making money and living well. Time, energy, and attention are all things that are hard to get. When too many of them are used to control money, other areas are quietly ignored. Health is usually the first thing to go. To work longer hours, you have to sleep less. People put off working out because they don't see results right away. Stress lasts a long time. Next is relationships. People talk about how things work. Time spent together becomes planned and rushed. Creativity and curiosity go away when they don't make money right away. It seems like a luxury to rest instead of a need. A lot of people say that these sacrifices are only for a short time. People think that balance will be restored once a certain amount of money is reached. In reality, places that aren't taken care of cost money. Health issues lead to medical bills and less ability to work. It's harder to get emotional support and stay strong when your relationships are strained. When you're burned out, you don't work as hard or come up with as many new ideas. These effects are not vague. Over time, they have a direct effect on financial results. It's also harder to make long-term decisions when you're too worried about money. Being afraid of losing things makes you less aware. People start to think defensively when the main goal is to keep things stable. People prefer options that provide immediate gratification, despite potential detriment to their long-term development, not because they don't want to succeed, but because they can't stand not knowing. This is clear in the choices people make about their jobs. Someone stays in a job that doesn't help them learn new things because it pays well. They say no to chances that would mean a short-term drop in income, even if those chances could open up a lot of new opportunities for them in the future. People don't like starting their own businesses because of how they feel, not because of how it will help them. People don't invest in skill building because they don't expect to see quick returns. These choices seem smart when you look at them by themselves. They stop progress when they work together. As time goes on, the person becomes more dependent on their current job because they haven't learned any new skills. It's funny how trying to stay safe makes you more vulnerable. When change finally comes, as it always does, there aren't many options. This leads us straight to the security paradox. You want to be completely safe with your money, but that's not possible. No amount of money saved can make things certain. The markets are always changing, companies change, people's lives change. People who think that having enough money will make them feel safe are chasing something that isn't real. People become more aware of what could hurt them as buffers get bigger. The mind is focused on being safe. The ability to take risks goes down. Even small changes feel big because they threaten a sense of identity based on stability. The person gets more, but they don't feel safer. In some cases, they feel less safe because they have more to lose now. This cycle goes on and on. People who are anxious want to be in control more. Things are more sensitive when you have more control. Anxiety gets worse when you're more sensitive. Safety becomes a mental trick that is always there but never really there. The person is working hard and doing a lot of things right, but they still feel bad. This way of thinking changes who you are over time. People start to use money to show who they are. Net worth is a way to see how good someone is at something. The amount you save shows how well you stick to your goals. When you don't have enough money, it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like a failure on your part. You can feel good about yourself based on how well you do something, not who you are or how good you are at it. This change in who you are makes your feelings less stable. A good financial period makes you feel good about yourself in the short term. A setback makes you feel too much shame or fear. When the self is linked to things it can't control directly, it becomes unstable. We don't see money as just one part of life. Instead, we use it to judge life. You shouldn't be here. It stresses one area of your mind too much. When money has to carry the weight of identity, purpose, and security, it can't do any of those things well. The system gets too busy. The problem is no longer about strategy at this point. It's about the structure. You need to change how you think about money. If you don't change the way you think, making more money, budgeting better, or investing smarter will only make things worse. We need a model where money helps life instead of controlling it, and where we pay attention on purpose instead of out of habit. Because of that change, we need to think about what money is for, how much attention it should get, and where it fits into a bigger picture of skills and values. Without that change, the cycle keeps going. It makes a new kind of stability possible. You don't have to start using better strategies to break this pattern. It all begins with changing how you think about money. Money was never meant to show how smart, valuable, or well-behaved someone is. It's a tool. The goal is to help people make decisions, handle uncertainty, and live a life that is already going in a clear direction. When money is a score, every change feels like an attack on you. When it goes back to being a utility, those changes are facts instead of opinions. You feel better right away when you separate money from who you are. A bad month doesn't make you feel like you're not good at what you do. People don't think things have to get better and better all the time when they have a good month. It's easier to make choices now because they aren't based on how much you value yourself. This separation does not reduce accountability. It makes things easier to understand. People who see money as a tool are more likely to use it wisely because they don't let their emotions get in the way of every choice. This change in framing also changes how people pay attention. One of the best things you can do is set clear limits on where you pay attention to money. It seems like you have control when you keep an eye on things all the time, but it actually makes you more anxious. For long-term planning, you don't usually need to keep an eye on financial metrics every day or even every week. With structured review periods, you can keep an eye on things without getting too worked up. You only need to look at most decisions once a month or once every 3 months. Your mind has more room when you stop paying attention. Instead of reacting to every little change, people can think at a higher level again. Patterns begin to emerge. People don't listen to noise. They follow trends. Anxiety lessens not by the elimination of uncertainty, but because it is no longer intensified by constant exposure. Boundaries also help things get back to normal. Money is important, but it's not the only thing that matters. When you think about money too much, other parts of your life get pushed aside. When you look at money less often, those areas come back into view. Health, relationships, learning, and rest become the main things that people think about when making decisions instead of things that come to mind later. This lets you set financial goals based on what matters most in your life instead of what scares you. Goals that are based on avoiding things are usually defensive. They mostly want to avoid pain, loss, or embarrassment. Setting goals based on where you want to go in life can help. Their main goals are to give people more free time, help their health, invest in learning, and make relationships better. It's not just how they look that makes them different. It changes how people spend their money. When you set goals based on fear, it feels like you have to make a choice right away, which limits what you can do. When you base your goals on life, it makes more sense to make decisions. When you spend money on your health, it becomes an investment instead of something nice to have. It becomes useful to learn instead of a waste of time. Instead of being a way to deal with stress, decisions about money become a way to show what you value. This alignment also makes things more adaptable. Life priorities change. Health needs are not always the same. Relationships grow stronger. Jobs are different. These priorities change on their own when they are linked to money goals. When fear is tied to goals, they resist change and cause issues. A flexible framework is better for your mind and your wallet than a rigid one. People don't trust this framework just because they have a lot of it. It comes from being able to do it. It's important to save money, but it's not the best way to stay safe. Skills, flexibility, and resilience are more important over the long term. A person who can learn, change, and rebuild is safer than someone who stays in one place. Being able to do things that make you feel good about yourself makes money less of an emotional burden. Financial buffers change from being a part of who you are to being a part of who you are. Risk is no longer a threat to self-worth. Instead, it is a choice that is carefully considered. People don't see setbacks as failures, they see them as problems to solve. This way of thinking makes people want to face the unknown instead of running away from it. When people think they can, they make better choices. They're more likely to invest in growth. They know better what their chances are. They put up with short-term pain in order to get long-term benefits. This is not being careless. It is based on the idea that money is only one part of a larger system of skills. Over time, being less obsessed often leads to better money results. People who are calmer are less likely to react. They are less likely to follow trends, get upset when things go wrong, or fix things too much after making a mistake. They use strategy more than emotion to make decisions. Progress becomes more steady. You are less likely to get burned out. This doesn't mean you don't care about money. It means taking part in the right way. It's important to care about money. Ignoring it causes problems, but it's not good to care too much. When money controls your thoughts, feelings, and choices, it makes the safety it is supposed to give you less effective. People have the healthiest financial lives when money helps them reach their goals instead of the other way around. Money works in that structure without making a sound. It supports choices. It includes uncertainty. It makes things bigger. And since it doesn't have to worry about identity and control anymore, it can do what it was always meant to do much better. Money was never meant to be a part of who you are, how safe you feel, or how peaceful you are. When it becomes the most important thing in your life, it slowly takes over your time, thoughts, and choices. The goal isn't to care less about money. It's to put it back where it belongs, where it helps you live instead of controlling you. If this changed how you think about money, take a moment to think about it before moving on. If you want to have more honest, long talks about money, psychology, and how to build real stability, sign up for the channel.